Whenever the conversation turns to boundless expanses filled with mysteries and unexpected discoveries, most people immediately think of the famous Sahara. But how well do we really know this enormous ocean of sand? Today, we will transport ourselves to the most secret corners of the Sahara, where we will reveal incredible stories and secrets capable of astonishing the imagination. From strange, mysterious circles amid the dunes to lost ships and even fossilized marine creatures, you will be amazed. Watch until the end and discover a world of extraordinary finds that seem to have transcended reality and challenged all that is familiar. An amazing natural formation, often called the Eye of the Sahara, captivates the imagination with its scale. If you look at it from above, you can see an impressive circle that resembles a gigantic eye gazing directly at the sky. The diameter of this colossal formation is about 50 kilometers, making it visible even from satellites. From the very beginning, people proposed the boldest theories about the origin of the Eye of the Sahara. Some were convinced it was the trace of a large meteorite impact. Others seriously assumed that the strange circular shape was part of the legendary Atlantis. But in reality, everything turned out to be less fantastic. Scientists discovered that the eye is a geological dome formed from sedimentary rocks that was subjected to erosion many times over. Once upon a time, rivers flowed here and a lake shimmered, while abundant winds and water gradually polished the surface. However, the most mesmerizing aspect of this entire story is that the Sahara was not always a lifeless desert. If you imagine that millions of years ago, there was lush vegetation and countless bodies of water in this place, then the Eye of the Sahara becomes a symbol of nature's many faces. It can not only destroy, but also create something so monumental. But there are also completely surreal discoveries in the Sahara that make one question the boundaries of reality. Imagine a boundless sea of sand, scorching air rippling over burning dunes, and suddenly, in the midst of it all, a submarine appears. Yes, a regular submarine that somehow ended up in the depths of the desert. According to one mysterious version, it disappeared without a trace some years ago. How did this happen? There's no exact answer. Some suggest it was brought there specifically for experiments. Others come up with even more fantastic theories. And perhaps we will never unravel all the circumstances that led to this strange find. But as one legendary director pointed out, not every mystery needs to be solved. Sometimes a riddle is far more enticing than a direct answer. Another striking example of ancient history written right on the stone is the rock art found throughout the Sahara. Sometimes they look almost cartoonish, while other times they display astonishing details. The most interesting aspect is that some of the drawings may date back to a period 12,000 years ago. That is how far the roots of human culture in these expanses go. Many of these images depict hunting scenes, domestic animals, and cultural rituals, confirming that people lived here and led a dynamic lifestyle. Researchers believe that once upon a time, the Sahara was a flourishing region with lakes and rivers, allowing its inhabitants to prosper by taking advantage of abundant game and fresh water. Then, natural disasters, wars, or simple climate changes over centuries could have displaced entire communities, leaving these images without owners. Another important detail: rock art is vulnerable to the destructive influence of winds, sand, and temperature fluctuations. Scientists are compelled to develop programs to preserve these cultural masterpieces. If no action is taken, many drawings may disappear forever, taking with them crucial fragments of human history. The story of a mysterious lake that suddenly appeared in Tunisia is, without exaggeration, reminiscent of a fascinating film plot. In one of the regions near the city of Gafsa, people discovered an entire body of water that had never been on the map before. It formed literally over a short period of time, causing both local residents and scientists to puzzle over its origin. The water filled a depression to a depth of approximately 20 meters, and as soon as the locals heard about the miraculous lake, Crowds rushed there to swim and feel the cool relief right in the middle of the monotonous sandy expanses. According to the most popular theory, the cause of its appearance was minor underground seismic activity. Presumably, an earthquake destroyed the rock layer holding back underground waters, allowing them to surge to the surface and create this true wonder of the Sahara. Most astonishingly, scientists warned of the danger. No one could guarantee that the water would not turn out to be radioactive or contaminated with hazardous substances released from below ground. Nonetheless, there were daredevils who were not deterred in the least. It was as though nature itself had presented them with a gift in the form of an oasis, reminding everyone that the Sahara is filled with unpredictable surprises. Is it unexpected to encounter dinosaur remains in the very heart of the Sahara? It turns out this region teemed with life in previous epochs. Paleontologists, including the famous researcher Paul Sereno, have repeatedly discovered the bones of the most ancient dinosaurs here. Moreover, sometimes scientists have come across the remains of entirely new species previously unknown to science. Some of the dinosaurs from these places belong to families of predatory lizards. Others could amaze the imagination with their size or ability to fly. But they were not the only ones inhabiting these lands. Researchers often find fossilized remains of fish and reptiles that shared the same bodies of water with the giant dinosaurs. All of this confirms the idea that millions of years ago, the Sahara had green landscapes with networks of rivers and swamps rather than a scorching wasteland. Creatures that now seem fantastical lived there quite ordinarily. Excavations, however, are complicated by extreme heat, sandstorms, and the remoteness of many sites. Yet every time scientists manage to unearth another set of bones, our collective knowledge of prehistoric life expands. Sometimes, it is specifically findings from the Sahara that help fill gaps in the evolutionary chain, showing how nature has changed the face of this land over millions of years. On the high cliffs in the Air Plateau region, unusual petroglyphs were once discovered, giant giraffe images. According to estimates, their height may reach 6 meters. In order to carve such impressive figures, ancient people had to expend considerable effort, as the rock is extremely hard and not every tool could handle carving at that height. Equally intriguing is the question of why they depicted giraffes specifically. Perhaps at that time, these astonishing animals truly lived in the Sahara, or they held ritual or symbolic significance. One hypothesis suggests that ancestors might have believed giraffes could reach the sky with their long necks and connect with the spirit world. Or maybe someone simply wanted to preserve the images of large creatures roaming the area back when it was not yet a desert. In any case, these petroglyphs are a genuine artistic testament to the fact that the Sahara once belonged to a world where people lived side by side with diverse large animals. Each such drawing is like a window into a long-lost reality, allowing us to feel the bond between humanity and nature. In many people's minds, a desert is nothing but sand, rocks, and blazing sun. But imagine one area of the Sahara where fragments of unusual yellowish or greenish glass are suddenly discovered. This is what is known as Libyan desert glass. Researchers have established that it formed millions of years ago under the impact of colossal temperature and pressure caused by the fall of a large meteorite. Imagine a powerful collision that melted the sand and created a glassy mass scattered across a vast territory. According to scientists' estimates, the age of such glass fragments may reach 29 million years. And what is most interesting is that people in ancient times already knew about the existence of this glass and even used it to craft jewelry or weapons. For instance, there are theories that pharaohs and other influential individuals may have prized these alien materials as symbols of status and power. In addition to its historical importance, Libyan desert glass is valuable to science. Examining its structure helps us better understand cosmic catastrophes and their effects on the Earth's surface, as well as reminds us how outer space occasionally leaves its mark on the most unexpected parts of the planet. In various regions of this vast desert Archaeologists have discovered fragments of walls, paved roads, pottery workshops, and even fortress structures over the centuries. Sometimes the buildings are incredibly well preserved. You merely need to remove the sand. The simplest explanation for this phenomenon is that once these settlements flourished, for the climate was different, and trade routes passed precisely here. Then, as the dunes advanced, rivers dried up, and people moved to more hospitable places, abandoning their homes to fate. Over time, layer after layer of sand accumulated, and the settlements disappeared. But just imagine how many more towns and villages could lie beneath the boundless layer of sand, waiting for their turn to appear before astonished scientists. Such findings help us reconstruct the lost history of the peoples of North Africa and ancient civilizations that vanished hundreds or even thousands of years ago. This is a whale cemetery discovered in a remote part of the Egyptian desert called Wadi al-Hitan. Around 1,000 remains of ancient cetaceans have been found here, and in some spots practically complete skeletons. They date to a period when a sea known as Tethys covered a significant portion of this territory. About 40 million years ago, this region was the floor of a shallow ocean. Then, large-scale climate changes occurred. The water level fell, the land emerged onto the surface, and what used to be the ocean gradually turned into a swampy area and then into a desert. The massive bones of ancient marine creatures remained where they once swam among the waves. Today, this site is recognized as a unique nature preserve, drawing archaeologists from all over the world to study whale evolution. Many of the skeletons discovered belong to transitional species that shed light on the shift from land mammals to fully marine giants. Each fossilized vertebra is like a page in the chronicle of life's development on Earth. What could be more impressive in the desert than a giant monolith standing alone amid the endless dunes? Ben Amer is the second largest monolith on our planet, reaching roughly 630 meters in height. It is located so far into the depths of the Sahara that simply getting there is a genuine adventure. Not many people are eager to travel to Ben Amer. You have to overcome difficult stretches, make arrangements with local nomadic guides willing to take the risk and lead the way. But those who do manage to get there often call it the Stone Giant, which seems to connect the sky and the earth. Surprisingly, if you want, you can even climb it, although it is certainly not a walk in the park. Such a majestic formation is yet another testament to the diversity and grandeur of the Sahara's natural landscape. After all, a desert is not just sand, but also mountain massifs, strangely shaped cliffs, monoliths, and bodies of water. Ben Amer, like a colossal sentinel, reminds us that there are still surprises and enigmas in these regions for humanity to discover. When enthusiasts of mystery-seeking examine the Sahara using satellite maps, they sometimes notice intriguing circular shapes on the surface. They resemble the crop circles that became popular in UFO circles. But in reality, the explanation is far more pragmatic. These circles are connected to a water supply system known as the Nubian Sandstone Aquifer. To obtain precious water for cultivating crops over a vast territory, local inhabitants drill wells and create irrigation circles, each of which ensures the watering of a specific area. From a bird's-eye view, these zones look like perfect geometric patterns. Sometimes it genuinely can confuse people and appear as someone's mystical sign. Yet behind this beauty lies a serious objective: feeding the population in a place where it seems nearly impossible to grow anything. It underscores the resourcefulness of the Sahara's inhabitants, who must find ways to survive in extremely arid conditions. One of the most enigmatic objects found in the desert was a funerary boat discovered in an ancient necropolis. The most astonishing aspect was that the expensive types of wood used to build this vessel were typically reserved for the burials of pharaohs and the elite, yet archaeologists established that the individual buried alongside this boat was not born an aristocrat. Later, it was revealed that this person likely acquired a high status by serving a pharaoh or king, which explains such grand burial honors. This kind of boat symbolized a journey to the afterlife and showed that the deceased was honored as a person of high rank. This once again confirms that in ancient Egyptian culture, hierarchy could manifest itself in the most unexpected ways. And the Sahara, with its sands and hidden tombs, continues to delight scholars with fresh details about how people of that era conducted burials and commemorated the dead. A burial discovered not far from a place called Gobero shocked even the most experienced archaeologists. It was the grave of a woman and 2 children, approximately 5,000 years old. But the main point is that remnants of flowers were found near the remains, directly indicating that there was once vegetation here and water could be obtained far more easily than in modern times. Judging by the arrangement of the bodies, the woman and the children lay together as if embracing. The petals or plant fragments that were identified likely adorned the burial. Such a detail is invaluable. It shows that even in a harsh land, people strove to express tenderness, care, and grief. It is probable that for a long time this place neighbored a freshwater lake, providing ancient tribes with fish, game, and various grasses. But then, natural conditions shifted, and the sands consumed the area, turning it into the typical arid desert we know today. Only a delicate pattern of wilted flowers remains to remind us of what life in those days was like. An unexpected echo from the time of the Second World War. A bomber called Lady Be Good took off from Libya to attack a target near Naples. On the return, it was caught in a sandstorm and flew past its base without the crew realizing they had overshot the right coordinates. As a result, the pilots were forced to bail out, and the airplane continued on its course until it landed in the middle of the desert. The most astonishing thing is that 15 years after the bomber disappeared, it was accidentally discovered, practically intact. The area where the plane had crashed was so deserted that the entire Lady Be Good remained in the condition it had been left in. Tragically, the crew did not survive the merciless conditions of the Sahara while trying to find their way back to the base. Nevertheless, the discovery was extremely significant. It allowed historians and military researchers to study how machinery endures after many years in the desert, as well as reconstruct the final hours of that legendary flight. In the mid-2000s, archaeologists came upon a huge cluster of intricately arranged stones. Some were laid out in a semicircle, others formed rectangles, while still others were long lines or pyramidal mounds. Some of these objects reached several hundred meters in length. Scientists have proposed various explanations, from simple enclosures for livestock and commemorative markers to ritual structures. The most widely accepted hypothesis is that the piles of stones might have served as ancient burial sites or memorial monuments for local tribes. However, there is no definitive confirmation yet. Researchers continue to study this remarkable find, as it may shed light on how ancient tribes interacted with their environment, how they performed rituals, and what social structures they had. Perhaps future excavations will reveal another chapter of humanity's story that has remained buried beneath the sands. Many scholars believe that in vast desert regions with such an arid climate, fragments of ancient texts may still be hidden. The scrolls from the Qumran caves are among the oldest biblical manuscripts. They date back more than 2,000 years and contain excerpts from Old Testament books, as well as several unique texts that did not enter the canonical Bible. The discovery of the scrolls helped us understand how religious and historical knowledge was created, copied, and transmitted in those distant times. They survived thanks to the dryness and airtightness of the cave systems. And who knows, perhaps the harsh conditions of the Sahara have also preserved many lost manuscripts. In the scorching sand, ideal conditions can sometimes arise for preserving documents and artifacts that might reveal something radically new about our history. If people of various epochs lived in the Sahara, from the Stone Age to advanced ancient civilizations, then it stands to reason they had to defend themselves and hunt with something. From time to time, among the dunes, one finds old blades, arrowheads, spears crafted from metal and stone. Some of these items appear to have belonged to wealthy warriors, since they were made with special artistry. However, the weapons are not always luxurious or ceremonial. Sometimes they are very simple pieces, made hastily and thus lack refinement. They can reveal much about the military conflicts between tribes and trade caravans, about the lifestyles of nomads, or about methods of acquiring food. For instance, hunting tools made of bone or obsidian, which is also found in African regions, can provide evidence of technological exchange and shared knowledge between different groups of people. Occasionally, archaeologists stumble upon fragments of ancient forests that have miraculously survived in petrified form. The Sahara also contains such stone groves. For example, between the Ubari region and other remote areas, one can find magnificent remains of trees that once stood over 20 meters tall. Now, however, they have been transformed into unusual mineralized pillars. Especially striking is the sheer number of these finds. Some areas force you to literally walk among logs that look as though they were set down on the ground only yesterday. Science holds that millions of years ago, tropical conditions prevailed here. Powerful climate shifts occurred and all the trees died and petrified. Gradually, wind and sand polished this unique monument to different epochs. For researchers, fossilized forests function like a time machine. They reveal plant species that no longer exist anywhere else and show us what the ecosystem might have been like before the emergence of the first civilizations. These are not simply logs lying in the sand, but witnesses to the transformations of our planet over tens of millions of years. Imagine a secluded spot lost among the sands of Libya, where under a small rock overhang, archaeologists happened upon truly priceless remnants of ancient eras. In one region of the Sahara, experts discovered the remains of people from the Stone Age. Scientists believe that these skeletons lay underground for at least 8,000 years, and burials continued to be used until about 4,000 years ago, covering a massive span of time. Even more astonishing is that the majority of the graves contain women and children, and the burials look as though no one has disturbed them for thousands of years. The dense layer of sand, the wind, and the absence of permanent human habitation have preserved the ancient tombs in nearly perfect condition. To historians, such a find is a treasure. Analysis of DNA, the age of the bones, and the nature of the burial rites help reconstruct life during that distant period and shed light on how ancient communities survived and adapted to the gradually changing climate. Finally, there is the story of a ship called Bom Jesus, which set sail from Portugal in the early 16th century. The vessel was headed for Africa, but disappeared without a trace, along with its crew and cargo. Several centuries later, its remains were found on the Namibian coast, which geographically belongs to the arid regions of southwestern Africa. Due to storms and winds, the sand receded, revealing the wreckage. But the most thrilling part of the discovery was the ship's hold, where archaeologists found a real treasure: thousands of gold coins and a huge quantity of copper ingots. The reason the ship ended up in such an unusual place is essentially understandable. The Namibian coast is notorious for storms and strong currents that often carry ships toward shore, after which the sands eventually conceal the wrecks for centuries. The substantial find shed light on the maritime trade routes of that era and confirmed how dangerous long voyages could be. People chased after wealth, dreaming of riches and new lands, but sometimes fell victim to a fierce environment. Thus, Bom Jesus, frozen in time, is a witness to a desperate age, a testimony the desert only returned to the world in our time. Do not forget to like and subscribe to the channel. Meanwhile, we suggest you watch our other 2 episodes.